This section is about graphing quadratic equations. So previously, we actually were graphing things in what we call standard form, which is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So today, we are going to be graphing equations that are in what we call vertex form. So vertex form is still going to give us a quadratic equation. It'll still give us a parabola. The only difference is that it's just written in a different way when you start out. So the lovely thing about vertex form is that you can look at it without doing any work. You can actually find your vertex. So your vertex of this is going to be at the point HK. So in addition to that, you are going to have an axis of symmetry. As with the previous section, the axis of symmetry is going to be your x-coordinate. It's going to be a line at x equals h. The other nice thing about this is that, same as the previous thing, if your a is positive, the graph is going to open up. And if it's negative, it's going to open down. So there's a lot of things that we have in common with the previous section. And I'm going to go ahead and do an example. For this example, we are going to graph. And the first thing that you have to do is you need to figure out what are your h and your k. So remember, the original form was y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So my h in this case is going to be the number being subtracted from the x, which is 2. My k is going to be negative 4. So my vertex is at 2, negative 4. So if you want, you can go ahead and even draw that right away. So the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out the axis of symmetry. And if you were good with the last section, you probably remember that the axis of symmetry is at x equals 2. So we're going to go ahead and draw a dotted line. So then from there, we can do several things. I am actually going to now find 2 other points. And if you want, you can even draw an XY chart and put your vertex in the middle. So you don't have to actually work out the problem again for the 2 because we know what the value of y is when x is 2. So the other 2 points I'm going to choose actually are going to be the ones that are close to x equals 2. I'm going to choose 0 and 1. You're not always going to choose 0 and 1, but I would recommend you choose whatever 2 values are very close to your x-coordinate or your vertex. So for x equals 0, you are going to substitute that in to your original equation. And when you do that, make sure that you follow the order of operations. You get y equals 3 times negative 2 squared minus 4. And negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2. So that gives you 3 times 4 minus 4, which gives you 8 minus 4, or which gives you 12 minus 4, which is just 8. So you can go ahead and draw the point 0, 8 on your graph. By the way, that's actually your y-intercept. The next one I'm going to do is x equals 1. So I'm going to substitute that into my original equation. So make sure that you follow the order of operations. You're going to do what's in the parentheses. 1 minus 2 is -1. -1 squared is +1. You get 3 times 1, or just 3, minus 4. That gives you -1. So now I have a point at 1, -1. All right, so from there comes the fun part. We are going to find the mirror images of each of these points. So my vertex stays where it is. The one that was at 1, -1, I'm going to draw the exact same point on the opposite side of that axis of symmetry. Same thing, the one at 0, 8, I'm going to draw the exact same point on the opposite side of the axis of symmetry. Now I'm going to draw my parabola. And I didn't go through all the points, but I got a good shape. Hopefully, since you're doing it on paper, yours will look a little better. And that's my answer. So for the next one, if you're feeling good about it, feel free to try it on your own. Pause and try it on your own. Otherwise, we're just going to go through it. So first thing you're going to do is find your vertex. And the vertex, remember, is going to be the point HK. So it's important to notice here that your H is actually going to be -3. The way that we know it is because in our original formula, it's x minus h, but in this one we have x plus 3. So make sure that you don't forget your negative. The k, whatever the sign of the value in your equation is, the same side transfers down, so it is still going to be negative for 2. So let's go ahead and draw that point. We have one at -3, -2. It's going to be right here. From there, you need to draw your axis of symmetry. That'll help us out in just a minute. And now you need to find 2 other points. So the 2 other points that you find, it's up to you which ones you do. I'm going to put -3, -2 in the middle. So in my opinion, the easiest point to find on these actually is always going to be 0. So if you want to do that, go for it. Sometimes 0 is going to be further away from the vertex, or sometimes it'll be the actual vertex, but I recommend using that one as much as you can. So I'm going to substitute that in. When I do that, I get y equals 0 plus 3 squared minus 2. 0 plus 3 is 3. And 3 squared is 9. So I end up getting 9 minus 2 is 7. So now I can draw my point 0, 7. The next one I'll just do -1. And for that one, I'm going to substitute in -1 for x. I get y equals -1 plus 3 squared minus 2. -1 plus 3 is 2. 2 squared is 4, so I get 4 minus 2, which gives me a point at -1, 2. So now I can use the axis of symmetry to reflect and find other points. So my first point, -1, 2, I'm going to draw the same point on the other side. Notice how I did it at -5. By the way, you don't need to fill in the table for the second side, but you can if you want to. The next one I am going to do is at -6, and that's going to be up at 7. So that's a reflection of the y-intercept. So then from there, you're just going to draw your parabola. And the one other thing I do want to point out in this section is that this point right here, the vertex, is going to be our minimum value. So sometimes I'll ask you, what's the minimum of this equation? And you will just write down the vertex. And there's going to be other times, for example, if the parabola is upside down, that you will be writing out the maximum, the highest point. So we'll go over this in class a little bit, but just know that the minimum and the maximum are going to be two things that you are going to be asked.